Hey, fuckfaces. Back for another deep dive, and today we're going to rip the goddamn Band-Aid off this whole hydrogen economy bullshit. You know that futuristic wet dream where we ditch fossil fuels and run everything on hydrogen? Like a bunch of eco-righteous assholes? We've got a shitload of articles, research papers, and even some drinking scribbles I made on a bar napkin to help us unpack this clusterfuck.
Well, the idea is we can move away from fossil fuels and build a cleaner energy system using hydrogen.
All right, less ash-shattery for the planet, I get it. But let's cut the crap. How the hell do we even get our grubby little hands on this hydrogen shit? It's not like it's just floating around waiting for us to grab it, right?
Actually, it kind of is. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exist in its pure form naturally, at least not in any useful quantities. We have to extract it,
Yeah.
which is where things get messy.
So spill the beans. How do we wrangle this hydrogen shit?
The most common method right now is what's called gray hydrogen, which is basically made by ripping hydrogen out of natural gas. It's a process called steam methane reforming, where they heat up natural gas with steam and bam, out comes hydrogen.
Sounds simple enough. But what's the fucking catch?
The catch is that it's about as eco-friendly as a goddamn monster truck rally. For every ton of gray hydrogen we make, we pump out something like 6 to 9 tons of carbon dioxide.
So much for saving the planet.
Yeah.
What about that blue hydrogen I keep hearing about? Is that any better?
Blue hydrogen is basically gray hydrogen trying to dress up for a fancy dinner party. It's made the same way. But they slap on some carbon capture technology to try and trap those emissions.
So it's like putting a goddamn filter on a cigarette. It might make you feel a little less guilty, but you're still sucking down all that crap.
Exactly. It's still relying on fossil fuels, so it's not exactly a long-term solution.
Okay, so blue hydrogen is a half-assed attempt at being good. What about this green hydrogen? Everyone's jizzing their pants over. That sounds like the real deal, right?
Green hydrogen is the holy grail, the unicorn fart of the hydrogen world. It's made by using renewable energy like solar or wind power to split water molecules and extract pure hydrogen. Zero emissions, baby.
So it's like the vegan, gluten-free, fair trade coffee of hydrogen? Sounds fucking expensive.
You hit the nail on the head. Green hydrogen is a lot pricier than those other two options, which is why it's not as widely used yet.
Figures. So let's say we've got our hands on this hydrogen ship, whether it's gray, blue, or green. What the hell do we actually do with it? What are the money shots?
Right now, most hydrogen is used for things like refining oil and making fertilizer. Kind of ironic, right? We're using a potential clean energy source to prop up the fossil fuel industry.
It's like using a Tesla to tow a goddamn oil tanker. What a clusterfuck. Where's the revolutionary shit we were promised?
The real potential lies in replacing fossil fuels in heavy industries. Think steel making, cement production, that sort of thing. We could also use it to power ships, planes, long-haul trucks, even potentially homes.
Hold up, planes running on hydrogen. That sounds like a Michael Bay movie waiting to happen.
It's definitely a challenge. But engineers are working on making hydrogen fuel cells more efficient and durable. We're not quite there yet, but it's on the horizon.
Okay, so maybe hydrogen planes aren't going to explode in midair. But what about hydrogen cars? Are those going to be a thing, or are we all going to be stuck with Elon Musk's overpriced ego trips?
Well, hydrogen cars do exist, but they're facing an uphill battle. Electric vehicles are just more practical and cost-effective right now, especially for everyday driving.
Sounds like hydrogen cars are like that awkward friend who shows up to a party in a banana costume, trying way too hard and just not fitting in. But hang on, I've heard some folks saying this whole hydrogen economy thing is a load of bullshit. Like it's just a distraction from real solutions like renewable energy and reducing consumption. What's the deal with that?
Well, it's true that hydrogen isn't a magical solution to all our problems. There are some serious limitations we need to consider.
Okay, hit me with the bad news. What are the biggest hydrogen hangovers we're going to be dealing with?
One of the biggest issues is efficiency. A lot of energy is lost in the process of producing, storing, and using hydrogen. So even if we start with clean energy, we're still wasting a chunk of it along the way.
So it's like pouring a gallon of beer into a tiny shot glass and calling it a night.
Pretty much. We also have to think about safety. Hydrogen is highly flammable and difficult to store and transport. Building a hydrogen infrastructure would be a massive undertaking, and there are some inherent risks involved.
And let's not forget, this is the shit that literally blew up the Hindenburg. Not exactly the kind of track record that inspires confidence.
Right. Safety is paramount. Then there's the issue of, well, everything else. We need to build a whole new network of pipelines, storage facilities, and refueling stations to make a hydrogen economy a reality.
So we're talking about ripping apart our existing energy infrastructure and rebuilding it from scratch. Sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It wouldn't be easy, that's for sure. And there's still a lot of debate about whether hydrogen is the best way to decarbonize certain sectors, like heating homes. Some experts argue that electrifying heating with heat pumps would be a more efficient and cost-effective approach.
So it's not a simple case of hydrogen, good, fossil fuels, bad. We need to think critically about what makes the most sense in each situation.
Absolutely. A balanced approach is essential. We need to consider all the options and weigh the pros and cons carefully.
All right, so this hydrogen thing isn't all sunshine and unicorn farts. But are there any places where it's actually being used successfully, or are we just jerking each other off with hypotheticals?
There are some pretty interesting projects happening around the world that show the potential of hydrogen.
All right, give me the juicy details. Where's this hydrogen shit actually making a difference?
One fascinating example is Saudi Arabia's green ammonia plant. They're using renewable energy to produce hydrogen, which is then combined with nitrogen to make ammonia, a key ingredient in fertilizer.
Hold on, Saudi Arabia. The oil sheikhs themselves are brewing up fertilizer with hydrogen. What the fuck is going on here? That's some next-level shit.
It is pretty wild, Saudi Arabia. A country practically built on oil is investing heavily in green hydrogen. They're aiming to produce a shit ton of green ammonia each year, starting in 2025.
So are they just trying to greenwash their image, or are they genuinely betting on hydrogen? What's the deal?
It's probably a bit of both. They know the world is moving away from fossil fuels, and they're trying to position themselves as leaders in the clean energy transition. Plus, green ammonia is a valuable commodity, and they see a huge export market for it.
So that's a smart business move disguised as environmentalism. Sneaky bastards.
Oh.
Okay, so the Saudis are playing the long game. What about the rest of the world? Who else is jumping on this hydrogen bandwagon?
Germany is another interesting case. They're pumping a lot of money into hydrogen-ready power plants, which can run on a mix of natural gas and hydrogen.
So like a hybrid engine, but for power plants. That actually sounds kind of clever.
It is. It gives them flexibility. They can start by blending in small amounts of hydrogen and gradually increase the percentage as the technology and infrastructure improve.
So they're hedging their bets, keeping their options open.
Huh.
Smart move. All right, we've got the Saudis making fertilizer and the Germans building hybrid power plants. Anyone else doing anything remotely interesting with this hydrogen shit?
Iceland has perhaps the most ambitious plan of all. They're aiming for a 100% hydrogen economy, powered by their abundant geothermal energy.
Holy shit. Iceland is going all in. Those Vikings aren't messing around. What exactly are they planning to do with all that hydrogen?
They're looking at everything from powering their fishing fleet and transportation systems to heating homes and exporting hydrogen to other countries. They want to become a global leader in the hydrogen economy.
So they're turning their entire country into a giant hydrogen experiment. That's pretty badass, actually.
Yeah.
All right, we've got these big flashy projects, but what about the everyday stuff? Is hydrogen sneaking into any other parts of our lives?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about using hydrogen for heating homes.
So instead of those old school gas furnaces, we'd have hydrogen boilers.
Exactly. The idea is to blend hydrogen into the existing natural gas grid, so people wouldn't even need to replace their appliances.
That sounds way too good to be true. What's the catch?
There are a few issues. First, blending hydrogen into the natural gas grid would require extensive modifications to ensure safety and prevent leaks. Hydrogen is a sneaky little molecule, and it can find its way through the tiniest cracks.
So we'd need to hydrogen-proof our entire gas infrastructure. Sounds like a recipe for a clusterfuck.
It would be a major undertaking. Plus, hydrogen is less energy dense than natural gas, so we'd need to burn more of it to get the same amount of heat.
So more hydrogen, more problems.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And then there's the cost. Producing and transporting hydrogen for home heating would likely be more expensive than sticking with natural gas, at least in the short term.
So it's not exactly a slam dunk. Are there any other alternatives for heating our homes without relying on fossil fuels?
There are. Some experts argue that electrifying heating with heat pumps would be a more efficient and cost-effective solution in many cases. Heat pumps use electricity to move heat from one place to another, and they can be very energy efficient, especially in mild climates.
Heat pumps, huh? Aren't those things kind of expensive and complicated?
They can be, but the technology is improving and prices are coming down. Plus, governments are offering incentives and subsidies to encourage people to switch to heat pumps.
So there are options on the table. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. We need to consider the costs, the infrastructure, and the climate to figure out what makes the most sense for each situation.
Exactly. A balanced approach is essential.
All right, so we've covered some real-world examples of where hydrogen is being used, from fertilizer production in Saudi Arabia to powering homes in Iceland. But let's be real, this shit is expensive. How the fuck do we make this hydrogen dream affordable for the average Joe? All right, motherfuckers, welcome back for the grand finale of our hydrogen deep dive. We've talked about how this shit is made, where it's being used, and the potential headaches it could cause. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty, the bottom dollar, the cold, hard cash. How much is this hydrogen dream going to cost us?
The economics of hydrogen are definitely a key piece of the puzzle. As we talked about earlier, we've got those three main players, gray, blue, and green hydrogen. Each comes with its own price tag.
Yeah, and let's be real. Most people aren't going to give a flying fuck about saving the planet if it's going to bankrupt them. So break it down for us. What's the damage?
Right now, gray hydrogen is the cheapest to produce, especially without a carbon tax. It's the easiest and most established method, even if it's the dirtiest.
Makes sense. Why bother with the fancy eco-friendly shit when you could just pump out the cheap stuff and rake in the cash?
That's the mindset a lot of companies are operating with, unfortunately. But then we've got blue hydrogen, which tries to clean up its act with carbon capture and storage, but that adds to the cost.
So blue hydrogen is like trying to buy your way into heaven. It's still relying on those dirty fossil fuels, but it's trying to offset the guilt with some fancy technology.
It's a step in the right direction, but it's still a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have green hydrogen, the eco-warrior of the bunch. It's made with renewable energy and electrolysis, so it's squeaky clean, but that cleanliness comes at a premium.
So green hydrogen is like that organic, grass-fed, free-range chicken, delicious and ethical. You're going to pay a hefty price for it.
That's a good way to put it. But here's the thing. The cost of green hydrogen is expected to plummet in the coming years. Renewable energy is getting cheaper by the day, and electrolysis technology is rapidly improving.
So there's hope for us cheap-ass environmentalists yet.
Absolutely. Some experts predict that green hydrogen could be just as cheap as gray hydrogen by 2030, especially if governments slap a hefty carbon tax on fossil fuels.
Carbon taxes, eh? Sounds like a surefire way to piss off a lot of people.
It's definitely a controversial topic, but it could be a powerful tool for leveling the playing field and accelerating the shift to cleaner energy sources.
All right, let's say the cost of hydrogen comes down and everyone's suddenly clamoring for this miracle fuel. What about the other roadblocks we talked about? The storage and transport issues still sound like a royal pain in the ass.
You're not wrong. Storing hydrogen safely and efficiently is one of the biggest challenges we face. It's a tiny molecule that loves to escape, and compressing or liquefying it takes a lot of energy.
So it's like trying to bottle a fart?
Mm.
Messy,
Mm.
potentially explosive, and not very practical.
Yeah, pretty much. And then there's the whole transportation nightmare. Building dedicated hydrogen pipelines is expensive as hell, and we'd need a whole new infrastructure to support a hydrogen economy.
So we're talking about ripping apart our current energy system and rebuilding it from the ground up. That sounds like a recipe for chaos.
It wouldn't be a walk in the park, that's for sure. But there are potential solutions. Some experts suggest repurposing existing natural gas pipelines for hydrogen transport, which could significantly reduce costs.
So turning those fossil fuel arteries into hydrogen highways, that's actually a pretty clever idea. Kill two birds with one stone, so to speak.
Exactly. It's a way to leverage existing infrastructure and make the transition smoother and potentially less expensive.
Okay, so we've covered the good, the bad, and the ugly of this whole hydrogen economy thing. We've explored the different ways to make it, the potential uses, the challenges, and the costs. But before we wrap up this clusterfuck of a conversation, any final pearls of wisdom you want to drop on our listeners?
The main takeaway is this hydrogen is not a magical solution, a silver bullet that's going to solve all our energy problems overnight. But it does have the potential to be a major player in a cleaner, more sustainable future. The transition to a hydrogen economy will be messy, complex, and probably full of surprises. But it's a journey worth taking.
Well said. And to all you beautiful bastards out there listening, stay curious, keep asking questions, and don't believe the hype. This hydrogen shit is just getting started. It's going to be a wild ride. Catch you later.